Hi everyone, welcome back to Aspergers from the Inside. You're here with Paul. I make weekly videos sharing the human side of autism, so make sure you hit subscribe to get the latest content. So last week, we looked at the question of does autism get easier with age, which was not a particularly positive video because unfortunately the answer a lot of the times is no, it definitely does not. So today, a little bit more of a positive video. What we learnt last week is that there can be periods in life that are quite good when you're feeling quite well supported and everything is actually going well. So I thought I would do a bit of a positive video and share one of those periods in my life, which was my university years, probably the best supported years of my entire life. I thought it's interesting because very often I get questions from parents worried about how their young person is going to go sort of transitioning into adulthood and sort of leaving school and deciding what to do and things like that. I actually found that high school was by far the most challenging experience. Primary school wasn't great, but going to high school, there were a number of extra difficult things due to executive function and social challenges, and all of a sudden we were expected to know what was going on and get ourselves from one class to another and things like that, which were hugely challenging at the time. Whereas going from school to university, it was more like all of that power was put into my hands and I was able to implement the solutions that I knew worked best for me. So I'll be going through a number of different categories: physical and emotional support, social support, in relationships, financial and intellectual stimulation and passion and things like that as well. So if we start with the emotional and physical aspect, I teach emotional intelligence. I'm a life coach. I do things like that. So that's why I've linked emotional and physical, because for me, when I do exercise, when I get out, that's a big emotional regulatory mechanism for me, because the mind and body are so connected in that way, which I decided to spontaneously explain because it might not be obvious why I say emotional/physical in the one thing. So during university, I did Taekwondo like 3 or 4 times a week. And you get pretty fit when you do 2 hours worth of jumping and kicking a couple of times a week. So that was fantastic from an exercise point of view. It was fantastic from a social point of view. It was fantastic from a hobby point of view. I had something to work on. I had forms that I could practice at home. I had a hobby that I could slowly get better at and feel competent with. Kicking stuff really hard is fun. All of that stuff. I was able to volunteer for the club. I was their equipment manager for a while. I was really getting involved, and there were just endless amount of positive things that came out of being involved in the Taekwondo club and having that physical release. I remember specifically a couple of instances where I had a lecture that was really frustrating, or more specifically, a lecturer who was really frustrating, and finishing the study part, going to the gym and kicking things really hard helped a lot to manage that frustration. Another thing that I did in terms of to help with my physical and emotional expression was I played the drums. I learned the drums all through high school, and when I joined the university, I joined their jazz orchestra, and we would have a rehearsal one night a week. Again, playing the drums is really physical. It's really fun. You can kind of feel the music go through you. I get to move my body a lot. I'm not the kind of person who likes to sit down and sit still, right? So having an expressive musical outlet where I can actually move my body a lot really, really helps. It's also a bit of exercise as well. And again, it came with all of these additional positive benefits in other areas. I made new friends. I talked to new people. We went away and had had practice camps together, and where we went away for a couple of days and things like that. We performed together. We hung out together after practice. All of these additional things that came with the opportunity to be involved in a community. So that brings us to the next aspect, which is the social aspect of university. I was extremely fortunate to be at a very social university. The clubs and societies aspect of the university was very, very strong on campus. So I would have friends from my course, friends from the engineering society. I was probably a member of dozens of different societies, because they all hold barbecues with free sausages and beer, but you have to be a member. But being a member costs $5. So all of a sudden you see, oh, the Society of Chemical Engineers is having a barbecue today. They don't care if you're a chemical engineer or not. Come along, be social, pay them $5 and have unlimited sausages and beer. That was quite appealing when I was sort of 18, 19. I gained a lot of weight that year. Anyway, so there were a lot of social opportunities because we were all on campus at the same time, and between classes, there was nothing better to do than hang out with people that you know. Outside university, I also had a fantastic youth group. It was called Antioch. Some of you may have heard of what that is. And basically, again, we would meet once a week. It was a really safe, accepting place where we were explicitly told, in this group, everyone is friends with everyone else. So I discovered that group when I was 16, and I was actively involved for probably 5 years, or 5 or 6 years, before I kind of outgrew it. So again, we met once a week. We did lots of social things outside of that group, and it was a really safe place to explore who I am and who I want to be, without worrying about being judged by other people. Another aspect of at the time was that my university had an incredibly organized orientation program. It was called Host Scheme, and I would volunteer for that. Actually, before I volunteered for it, I was a participant, and they started the year with a 3-day camp down on the beach with 120 other first-year students, and it was insane. We met so many people. We had lots of fun. Everyone had this energy of just finishing school and starting a whole new lease on life with a whole new level of freedom and autonomy and fun, and just really wanting to, get into life. So that meant that by the time there was the official orientation day at the university, right? The university has tens of thousands of people on campus. So I imagine if I didn't get to know some people beforehand, then coming onto campus on the first day, having it completely full of people and walking around by myself would not have been a fun experience. But because I'd done this orientation camp, getting to know 100 people in an intense 3-day experience, I actually, when I got home after that, I wrote down the names of everyone I could remember, and I literally got to almost 100 people. I'd had individual conversations with so many people that I could remember. So it meant that when I got to orientation day, I couldn't walk 500 meters without bumping into someone I knew, which was a fantastic way to feel like I belonged at the time. Anyway, I could go on and on. The next category I've got is love and affection. And I met my first serious long-term girlfriend very early on in my first year. And it was relatively easy because there were so many social groups and we had so many opportunities to spend time together in the beginning when we didn't really have to decide. It's not that I met a random person at a bar and had to say, would you like to go out with me? Because if not, then we'll probably never ever see each other again. It was more like, hey, we've bumped into each other quite a few times. We seem to like talking together. And it just sort of happened a bit more naturally from that sense. And we had so many mutual friends that it was just easy to maintain that relationship in that situation. The next category is financial support. So while I was at university, for the most part, I was living with my parents, which meant that I didn't have to stress about a lot of sort of day-to-day financial things, right? I didn't have to cook myself dinner every night. I didn't have to work 20 hours a week just to get enough money to pay the rent. It meant that I mean, I did work during that time. I had some casual jobs. I had some summer jobs. I went on exchange and lived in Malaysia for 6 months. I had a summer job in Queensland working at as an engineer. All of these were really good experiences, but they were kind of additional experiences. It wasn't that I was forced to do these just to survive. Because I had all of my basic needs met, I wasn't in danger financially, for example, which I feel extremely lucky about. I know a lot of others who really had to struggle during university. Often university students are some of the poorest members of our society, unfortunately. Even though in Australia, university is relatively cheap. Anyway, that's another discussion for a completely different day. So very well financially supported as well, which gave me a lot of opportunities to get involved. I had tutoring jobs. I was a tour guide for my university for a while. I marked exam papers. For some reason, the UK sent their exam papers to Melbourne to get marked, which was a great little summer job. Anyway, I digress. The next category is intellectual stimulation. I picked engineering because it sounded like the least boring subject that I could study at university. I knew I wanted to study something. I didn't really know what I was going to do. I'm like, engineering, that sounds interesting. Aerospace engineering, why not? That sounds great. Let's do that one. It allowed me to use my mind to learn new things, to apply myself to something. And better than that, it was very, very structured. So in a way, it was telling me exactly what I needed to do and exactly how I needed to do it. And the way that my subjects were assessed was always with an exam at the end of the semester. So it was ridiculous. Some of these subjects had exams worth 80% or more of the coursework. So the exam was the easy part. Having to do a lab every week and write up the work we were doing, and knowing that you're going to do this every week for 10 weeks and it's only going to contribute to 10% of your grade, and then you're going to have to sit an exam worth 90%. It was hard to focus on those other things, but the exams were great for my particular learning style because I knew exactly what to expect. I knew exactly what was required of me. And this is where it was so much easier than high school, because in high school, they kind of tell you what you need, how to do the schoolwork and when to do it. At university, I could go to the lectures if I wanted. I could do the homework if I wanted. I could spend as much or as little time doing it, and I could focus on the bits that were the most helpful for me. If I got something straight away, I didn't need to spend hours and hours doing homework and practice questions because I already understood. Whereas other areas that I really wasn't getting, I could spend as long as I wanted on them because I saved time from the other areas that I learned more quickly. So I did extremely well in, especially my first year of university. It just felt like the chains had completely lifted and I could finally implement the solutions and the study options that I knew worked for me. And I was fighting so much with my teachers, especially in the last couple of years of high school. And yeah, the freedom to do things how I needed was really a great support and liberating for me. So there are all the categories. As you can tell, I was not exaggerating. My university years were some of the best supported years of my life in these ways. So much so that by in my first year after uni, right? I graduated from a double degree at uni, and within a year, I was married, I had a house, I had a full-time job, I had friends and family, and I had financial security, and all of these things. Everything was fantastic as just at the end there. But unfortunately, and I won't go too much into the details after that, with the end of that period in my life, I lost a lot of these things. I didn't have Taekwondo every week. I didn't have my jazz orchestra. I outgrew my Antioch group. I wasn't volunteering at uni anymore. My engineering friends, I didn't see them every day because they all had jobs and I had jobs. All of these things that I took for granted at the time, I didn't realize how much I needed what they were giving me just to cope with life. So I was in a pretty good position straight after finishing university, and that all went downhill very, very, very quickly. And within about 3 years after that point that I mentioned, I no longer had a house, no longer had a wife, no longer had a job. Yeah, downhill very, very quickly after that. So that might be a topic for another day. But this was supposed to be a positive video. I also want to acknowledge that I do know a lot of people who did not have a good time at university. It's not always very accommodating. I was very fortunate to have all of the things that I mentioned here. And I guess I wanted to share it as an example that when we are well supported, we can do really well. And unfortunately, when we're not supported anymore, it can be hard to find those things that we actually need to succeed. So hope you enjoyed this video today, sharing a little bit about my life, some of the best years of my life that sometimes I wish I could get back. I will be back next week. Thanks for joining us, those who could join us live. Hi. And I'll be here same time next week, and I'll see you all again another time. Bye.